Join us every Wednesday for InFocus, a weekly talk show produced by the SKNIS Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. InFocus, your government, your business.
I'm Ian Richards. Welcome to InFocus, a weekly program where we zoom in on what's happening within and throughout the government, your government. The Department of Youth Empowerment is gearing up to host the annual Youth Month commemoration, traditionally observed in November. The government is keen to include the perspective on youth on every level of governance. It aims to focus youth work on environmental sustainability as it transforms the Twin Island Federation into a sustainable island state. How is the nation youth responding? Are they seizing the tremendous opportunities presented, or are they too distracted by popular culture? Minister of State for Youth Empowerment, the Honorable Isalean Phillip, is with us today to share her insight. The minister is supported by Sahira Joseph, Director of Youth Empowerment. Stay with us as we delve into your government, your business. Thanks for staying with us, and allow me now to welcome the Minister responsible for Youth Empowerment, the Minister of State, Honorable Isalean Phillip, and Sahira Joseph. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Right. So, Minister, we want to begin with you now. It's just been over a year that you became the Minister of State responsible for youth. As a young person yourself, how would you describe the experience?
I'd say for me, it has been a bit of a learning curve. Of course, getting into government, having not worked within the civil service previously. So just kind of learning the system, the process, also coming into understanding my own function and roles and responsibilities, getting to know the teams and the departments that I work with. So it has been a bit of a learning curve, but it's also been very exciting because I am very passionate about the work and about the vision for us to promote youth development across St. Kitts and Nevis. And so I've been feeling quite encouraged and, especially just the enthusiasm that I get, obviously, from the staff, particularly in the youth department with Joseph. So it's been, it's been a little bit of both, challenging, but also exciting. And so I continue to learn and grow and just look forward to whatever it is comes.
Ms. Joseph, you're also new in your position. I'm not sure most persons would be aware, but you essentially assumed leadership of the department at the end of November last year. Mm-hmm. How has that been?
It has absolutely been humbling. I moved from the role of being, so I'm looking forward to so much more.
Now, in your transitioning from a youth officer, a senior youth officer, to the director, you would have encountered some of the challenges that the young persons would have faced during your time. Explain to us some of those difficulties and how the department is working to overcome them. And of course, Minister, I'd like to hear from you in that perspective as well.
Okay, hearing our questions, 4 things jump out. A lot of them, they have family problems. And we recognized also that there are body issues surrounding a lot of our young people, but
body
at the top, body issues. So the way they look, how they appear, and I guess we can say they have a issue surrounding materialism too. And but what is number one for us? Every time a young person comes in to see me, it's always the one thing: they need a job. So the lack of employment opportunities, that's right there. That's number one, to be honest.
Yes, and I mean, I would support that. Youth unemployment seems to be pretty much, I guess, the number one youth challenge and issue that young people talk about. I think and potentially connected to body positivity issues is, mental health. That's something that was particularly raised last year at the Ministers' Forum. Hearing that from young people, especially in the post-COVID reality. So mental health and just, your own self-confidence, self-identity. And it's the age. Adolescence is usually the age where we deal with these issues, but it seems to be a bit more prevalent and a lot less taboo where the young persons themselves are speaking up about it. Something else that I think we don't necessarily hear as much about it, but we see it happening, and that is youth on youth violence, particularly in the schools. And I think that is potentially could be connected to the mental health issues and not being able to healthily explore and express negative emotions. So there seems to be a bit more aggression coming from our young people from different backgrounds. So those are some issues that I think we recognize in the department. And of course, the way we're trying to go about addressing those is, how we can develop new programming, how we can more positively engage the young people and get them out from behind their screens and kind of in a bit more healthier engagement. So that's really the task that we have in the youth department in terms of how we can provide opportunities for engagement.
And I have to ask specifically with regard to mental health and youth unemployment. Ms. Joseph?
I was actually about to add that right now what we're doing inside the ministry, we have the Youth Unemployment Task Force. So that is what we are trying to fix that situation within where we're at right now. We're doing the Employment Rapid Survey, and that survey is to tell us exactly what our position is, like what is actually happening. Why are these young people unemployed? Is it a matter of race? Is it a matter of what educational level they're at? Just to understand what is going on, and for those existing programming, what is it about them that we can tweak so that ultimately our young people could have jobs and careers that they are happy to go to. So
now that would call for some sort of a collaboration with other government agencies, possibly private sector. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, on the Youth Unemployment Task Force, we have the Labor Department, we have Social Development, Community Development, STEP, basically all of the players that can move change when it comes to employment. And our young people, they have a seat at the table.
Of course, the industry of commerce, of course, you have non-governmental partners as well who are part of that task force. And it's been informative initially, I think, just for the couple of meetings that I was able to attend, just to be able to understand that potentially there may be skills gaps in the workforce that, the private sector is looking for. But then on the education side, well, how are we kind of trying to make sure we develop those skill sets? What is the interest for the young people? And so we recognize that we don't necessarily have all of the information that we need in order to make the right programming or to take the right approach. So that's why we're starting with the rapid assessment, which is what Ms. Joseph would have mentioned. So we plan to really launch that once we have the survey completed, so that young people can actually just kind of do it quickly on their phones, on their devices. So we get just a baseline preliminary data and assessment of what's the state of youth unemployment, what are the needs for the young people, what's stopping young people from becoming employed in their own opinion, what are the barriers.
And the mental health aspect, of course, is very important. The Prime Minister is keen on that. Of course, he would have been speaking a lot about the mental health challenges that persons would have gone through during the pandemic when we were in lockdown. Those are times that some persons, when they look back, they don't look back on it so fondly after all, because it was very challenging, limited mobility, limited contact, and we understand why, of course, the health challenges, but still we have to look at the mental health impact, and the fallout still has to be addressed.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, around mental health, I think that's that's a new area, I think, for the youth department in terms of actually creating programming, because obviously we're not mental health professionals in the youth department. And so that also would require us to have partnerships and collaboration. But it has come up, and we are really trying to think about how we can really push that, whether that's through sessions or through group counseling, if we connect with the counseling center, maybe get more connected with our guidance counselors in the school.
And one of the things that we started this year with, we have inter-ministerial meetings. While the government has a lot of ministries, we have not met with everyone yet, but the whole plan is to ensure that we talk to each other, we see where we need support, and we go from there. So we are going to meet with every single institution that we possibly could to see how we could tackle some of these issues. So yeah, we know what we lack, and we know what our partners have and the level of support that we can get. So we're looking forward to so much.
And as you speak about engaging the stakeholders, now the question has to be asked, when you mentioned the survey, how is the Department of Youth interfacing with the young people?
To perform the survey itself?
No, overall, generally.
Well, my youth officers are based in the zones. So on a weekly basis, you would see them branded in their t-shirts going around in the community. Granted, we do a lot of our work right now in the secondary schools, but any community support that we could give and offer and provide, because again, our whole idea is programming. So any aspect of the community that we could address, that is the whole goal of youth work and youth officers. So we're there on a weekly basis. You can find us, but you can also visit the 3rd floor of the Cable building, and our number is 662-6054. So any questions, any queries, anywhere that we can lend support, reach out.
And to add to what Ms. Rose was saying, I always have to really give props to the youth officers in the department for the activities that they really host throughout the year, because we really do try to host different activities. So we do have our Green Thumb program that runs throughout the year, where we try to get young people out to get into nature, which is also mental health therapy.
Yes.
So, they go on different hikes, so they might go to Bloody Points. And so we have these activities periodically where we also try to get young people to come out, in addition to having our youth officers go to the young people in the schools.
That too.
We really try to get them to come out by hosting different activities and events that we think would be appealing to them. And so, and this is Youth Month coming up. So, that is all about having activities to engage the young people. So.
Yeah.
And in terms of speaking or interfacing with government ministers now on a policy level basis, where are we with that? What mediums are available?
So engagement with other ministries, that's the question.
In terms of the policy makers, the decision makers, and I suppose it would start with a sense of the permanent secretaries,
yes,
but also with the ministers themselves as well.
So, I'm not sure I really understand the question the best, but so I know when it comes to, we would have had a national youth policy with consultations taking place around that in terms of a policy level.
Yeah.
We actually do have a revised youth policy, and one of the plans is in November we will be tabling the revised version, which actually goes from 2022 to it's a 5-year long, 2027.
Yes.
And so we will be tabling that, and that should be where we're able to see where the different ministries and the different line ministers have a stake in promoting and supporting youth development. And so there's always engagement. So Ms. Joseph would have mentioned how, we have interministerial meetings with PSAs and other senior management officials, just to talk about what's happening, because of course the objective for us at Youth is to make sure that youth development is mainstreamed across all ministries. And so there is that consciousness. So we've been able to raise that consciousness. And of course, for me as the Minister of Youth, that is my objective, of course. So when I converse with my cabinet colleagues and I understand what's happening in their ministries, it's like, did you think about youth for that? Is there an opportunity for a young person to join this? And we have been able to actually have some opportunities for that. So for example, with Diplomatic Week, I did make the request to Senior Minister, Foreign Minister, if we could have some young persons be part of that event so that they have that exposure. And there were some young people who were able to work with the protocol officers during Diplomatic Week. Similarly, I believe the Ministry of Tourism would have recently had a young person, a youth ambassador, to attend a regional tourism youth congress. And so these are ways that I believe we are not only kind of talking about what needs to happen in youth development, but we're actually doing it in terms of actually implementing some of the policy initiatives that we have tacked.
We just follow on a minister in terms of something you said with regard to the youth policy, because as you mentioned, the span initially was for 2017 to 2022, and it actually was tabled in the National Assembly. Now you're saying that it has been updated.
Yes, so I think so since COVID came, so there were revisions and there were post-consultations just before the administration changed. There would have been some consultations again with youth to be able to revise the policy. And so the new policy actually takes into consideration the post-COVID-19 context. And so it speaks a bit more to that because obviously we're now in a post-COVID. But for the most part, in terms of the thematic areas of the policy, they're essentially the same, but in terms of what needs to take place in order for us to address the context and the realities of youth today in a post-COVID context. That's really where the revisions would have taken place.
Anything that stands out in that revision, Ms. Joseph, that you care to mention?
Youth officers would have been heavy in the process. We would have met with as much young persons as we possibly could, just to ensure that the data is sound and we could move forward with them in mind and actually be able to perform our jobs, because that policy informs how we move forward and interact with the young people. So
is there anything new that wasn't necessarily captured? I appreciate, as the Minister said, in terms of the post-COVID-19 environment, but is there any specific developing issue now? For instance, the issue of AI. That is something that is relatively new, that would not have been around 5 years ago. Is there anything like that or any other areas that would have come that the policy seeks to address?
It is not in our policy, but this summer we would have explored it, especially with this. We put on a house summit, and we introduced the campus to AI in the form of how do I write a resume and those kind of things, so they can move forward. So we have introduced it, but I don't think it's necessarily inside the policy.
No, sorry.
Yeah,
it's not explicitly stated in the policy. But I think,
but IT and information technology and digital media, it is present. So
yes.
Right, and were there any organizations? I know UNESCO was a key player in helping to develop the first draft. Any involvement from regional organizations, or are people able to learn from the experience before and were able to carry out this task?
For the revisions?
Yes.
So I think the revisions was a bit more smaller scale, because it wasn't necessary that we were throwing out the old policy completely.
Right.
And so it would have been, I think the consultations were more on a local level with local young people. Regionally, yes, you would have mentioned UNESCO would have been involved in the initial iteration of the development of the policy. I know the consultant who would have been engaged, Ms. Drinette Eversley. She has a vast experience regionally.
And that would be from the Commonwealth.
That's right. And so she was very central in supporting the work and developing that. So we really kind of trusted her insight in that regard.
Minister, I want to come back to the question in terms of the engagement with the young people at the ministerial level, and one such forum would have been a national consultation on the budget that took place recently. I'd like your thoughts on that, but we'll get to it in just a minute. We're going to take a quick break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with more in Focus. Welcome back to InFocus. We continue our discussion with the Minister of State responsible for youth empowerment, the Honorable Isalean Phillip, and Sahira Joseph, who is the Director of the Department of Youth Empowerment. Minister, we'll come back to you now, as we mentioned, the interaction between the ministers of government, the policymakers, and the young people. Now, the government has begun its budget consultation for the 2024 fiscal year. On October 11th, a forum was held at the St. Kitts Marriott Resort, dubbed Transformation to a Sustainable Island State, a conversation with the nation's youth. And persons who are watching this video would have been able to see some photos that were taken from that event. Now, this was the first time that the budget consultations were primarily designed to engage young persons, a specific program that was designed to engage young persons. Of course, there'll be other consultations. What was the strategy behind this engagement?
So the strategy is really just, as a matter of fact, in terms of what I said, in terms of youth development and youth work being mainstreamed. So the fact that we have budget consultations, and this was actually an initiative that was really pushed and encouraged by the Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew, in terms of making sure that we can take the budget to the people and make sure that it is understood by all demographics across the board. And so, of course, would have encouraged it and supported it. Cabinet was in support of the initiative, and so the real objective is really to be able to engage young people as in the budget, which is actually a very, very critical, one of the most critical aspects of governing, determining what the budget is going to be and the plans for the budget for the year coming. And so the objective was really to get young people involved in that. And I thought the session kind of really was very informative, and so I would hope that the young people who were present were able to appreciate just the information that is taken into consideration when it comes to developing a country's budget. And so we would have had the different presentations from the Financial Secretary, Ms. Hazel, representatives from Economic Development and Trade, and from different agencies, including statistics. And so the information I thought was very informative, it was very transparent, and then we also were able to get questions from the floor. One thing that I can appreciate about the effort with this consultation is that it really was able to capture young people from across the board. So not just students, but also young business professionals. And so the opportunity for these professionals to ask questions, we were actually some questions and comments from the floor that I thought were very interesting. We had comments from persons who are in the creative economy and talking about the challenges they face in terms of their own development as business persons and entrepreneurs. And it was really good to be able to have that interface, because then that is really how the policy development process ought to be, in terms of the consultative process, to be able to inform what we need to be doing in our respective ministries across government, to be able to ensure that we are responding to the needs of our electorate, of our nation, and particularly our young people. And so I thought it went very well. I think I give kudos to the Ministry of Finance for the initiative that they took to really be able to engage the young people. It was very informative, and I look forward to it being an annual thing, because I think it's important for us to engage young people so that they understand that governing is not just about going out and campaigning and just trying to give people what they want, but it's actually serious business, and we do have to make some very serious decisions when it comes to how the money is spent to be able to achieve the goal, which is really to have the Sustainable Island State agenda shared and have everybody buy in to that, which is the direction for the administration. Right.
And as it relates to the students that was there, and I will start with them because, as the person said, they were the low-hanging fruit, the most obvious largest group of persons to mobilize young people. Were they selected from a particular, as a grade or subject area, or was it just general across the board?
I honestly can't answer that question. I wasn't part of the organizing committee, but from what I saw and based on the engagements that I did, it seemed like it was targeted to more senior students in schools, so probably third to fifth formers, and of course our post-secondary institutions. So we had CFBC representatives, and I believe there were some students from technical vocational ABEC. So I believe it was targeted towards kind of more older students who are more closer to kind of being able to engage in voting.
Tell us a bit about the takeaways that you would have gotten. Now, of course, it was a very long and insightful presentation that was made. I remember looking at it online, and I saw a bit of the presentation from the Financial Secretary, and of course the Director of Statistics, which is very important in terms of persons being able to make informed decisions, as Ms. Joseph was talking about, having the surveys, having information that you can base decisions on. Tell us a bit about some of your takeaways from that.
So my takeaways, particularly from the young people and based on the questions were slow in coming in. So I think I gathered that this was perhaps the first time that they felt that they were engaged in such a way. And there were comments on the floor around wanting this type of approach to be continuous and not just token. Of course, I think the issue of unemployment came up again. There were questions around scholarship opportunities. There were questions around the future of economies. So, like I said, there was a question about the creative economy. We know that's a new ministry. That's part of being responsive to the concerns of persons within this space. So I think a major thing that I took away is that our young people are they're in tune with what's happening. So any notion that our young people don't know or that they're disinterested is a fallacy, and it is inaccurate, because they're very much interested, they're very much engaged, and they very much know what's happening outside to be able to compare with what's happening here. And so I take that to say, well, I think it is a good initiative for us as a government administration to really be very proactive and intentional about engaging young people, which is what we're all about, and which is what the Department of Youth is really trying to take the lead on making sure happens. And
feedback from your cabinet colleagues?
I think those who were able to be present, similarly, I believe, really appreciated the initiative. The fact that it was the first of its sort, I think they too were also able to kind of learn a bit more about what's happening in the budget process, and also to just also come to the realization that our young people, they don't ask stupid questions. They actually ask hard questions. And that is something that we've been experiencing even when we go on our visits. We would have done the visits for independence. We always engage with young people, give them opportunity to ask questions, and their questions are not simple little questions. They are critical thinkers, which is what we want to continue to encourage and continue to promote.
It brings governments down to a level, and government and governance down to a level that they can see, that they can feel, that they can experience themselves.
Yes. And I think that's important for us to do.
Right. And so, Minister, as we discuss the 2024 fiscal budget consultations that are coming up, anything that you're pushing for that you'd care to share? A little sneak peek?
Anything we're pushing for in the youth department, Ms. Joseph? For the budget, well, honestly, so, one of the major objectives of that initiative was really for us to also be able to educate our young people about the plans for the Sustainable Island State agenda. And a big part of the Sustainable Island State initiative and the framework is about our resiliency as a country. And that comes down to, of course, our climate, our environment, the things that we don't have control over, which is partly why our theme for Youth Month this year is Youth Work for Environmental Sustainability, because we recognize if we're talking about sustainability, we have to get young people thinking about, passionate about, caring for the environment, because they will be the ones who are primarily affected if there is no more SKNIS, because we have a tsunami and we die. So that, I think, is, of course, in support of kind of the priority agenda for the Sustainable Island State. Of course, we want to make sure that our young people are very much aware and understand why this is a priority for us, why we're talking about climate resiliency, why we're talking about food security, and why they have to play a role in their everyday lives, whether it's just to recycle or to just be more conscious about environmental business and the green economy, because we really want to stress that this is the direction we need to go in terms of making sure that our SKNIS can stand the test of time against whatever shocks come our way that are inevitable for us at this point.
And Ms. Joseph, in terms of the engagements with the young people now, volunteerism has always been a focus of the department.
Yes.
In fact, the department would have introduced a national volunteer corps.
That's correct.
But it's been a while since we've heard anything about it. What's happening there?
You see, the thing is, we started with a good 300 strong, right? That was because we had the students at CFBC. So a part of the arrangement was we would provide them opportunities to put in some volunteer hours, so then they receive the stipend. But we took a very hard hit when it was announced that, CFBC is free. So we went from about $300, 300 volunteers to about 40 at most. But we are not discouraged, because the young people, they still try to help out as best as they can. So we actually have plans coming up to bump up our numbers And there are a lot of activities for Youth Month that can lend support to. And I don't know if you've been told, but we are in charge of the Children's Carnival this year.
Well, no, so I wasn't aware of that.
Yes, so the volunteers have been coming in. It's slow, but I see an improvement, and I can only remain hopeful for further improvement.
So the Minister?
Yes, so if I may, just on the point of volunteerism, so that is certainly one of the challenges that we have in the department in terms of the trending just decline in volunteerism overall. And this may just be part of the whole COVID situation where now we're really trying to get people to come back out. And so, of course, we have opportunities where we're really trying to see how we can create opportunities to encourage and support volunteerism. We really did take a hit because I think it's through the
hard hit. Yes.
The program that CFBC had, which actually made volunteerism a requirement in order for them to maintain the program, that really was able to feed into us at the youth department. However, since that is no longer the case, we're
not discouraged.
We're not,
because we're gonna have discussion soon to talk about having a component at CFBC where you must put in some hours in order to graduate. So we're trying to bounce back. We're trying to come back.
That's what I was going to say in terms of conversations with education. So that's where the partnership with youth and education remains very strong, because we do want to see how we can encourage our young people through the education system to actually value volunteerism, and for them to be like, perhaps it's part of your co-curricular record. And so those are the conversations that Ms. Joseph is referring to that's being had. So we can try to boost volunteerism and the culture of volunteerism across the Federation.
And that actually was going to be my follow-up question in terms of engagement with CFBC, because as we mentioned, there is I don't necessarily want to use the word captive, but there is a focused attention right there of young people that you are able to take a hold of and tap into and encourage them to get involved. And so I'm certainly encouraged to hear that there are ongoing discussions with CFBC officials to try to find some way to get persons to tap back into the National Volunteer Corps, because I'm sure that their persons would have missed them. They had a very colorful shirts, and they were out and they were performing national duties. And that really speaks to the importance of volunteerism on an individual, particularly for young persons. Perhaps you can share a bit about you, because I know that you've been a volunteer yourself.
All my life.
How persons can benefit from being volunteers.
I like to tell people that I was a very busy child. It wasn't that I wanted to be in things, but it was just that, say an opportunity. Okay, let me see what it's about. That was it for me. And I would love to confidently say that I'm here sitting in this position now, Director of Youth, because of volunteerism. I would have met so many awesome persons growing up, especially at that summer camp. I pass people today at the gas station, the bakeries, and I'm like, hey, and it is so warm. And these are people I would have met when I was 10, 9, but the memories and the work that we did together. And I would encourage any young person to volunteer, because one thing you get with volunteerism, it gives you an opportunity to practice and develop your social skills. And in developing your social skills in turn, you see how you have to meaningfully engage people all the time. That in turn builds that solid support system. So you have a bunch of people there that have your back, look out for you. And again, using myself as an example, Miss Whitaker, when she was the HR manager, it was 2006. I finished with CFBC, and all I did was write up a government employment sheet. I just fill it out and just say, okay, we're going to see. And then I remember I received a call from Miss Whitaker. She said, Miss Joseph, please do your best. I'm going to send you here, do your best. But I'm just so sorry that she can't see. Miss Whitaker, I really, really tried to do the very best that I possibly can. So, she could see how far I got to. And persons like that, again, I would have met volunteering by Red Cross and so many different things. So again, I am a perfect example of what volunteerism could do for our young people.
And Minister, it really helps to shape you into a well-rounded individual. It exposes you to a number of opportunities that you may not be exposed to. I can tell you, and not to just to share a personal story. I should say that Sahira would have known that I would have volunteered with the Department of Youth Empowerment, and through that I was able to form a link with the CARICOM Secretariat, and that provided a host of opportunities that allowed me to interact with persons. So the networking part of it.
Absolutely
essential.
Beautiful, and it's not even just locally. You have so much opportunities internationally. I have French friends. You understand? Volunteerism did that.
That's right.
So.
And that is really what we're trying to encourage the young people to have them recognize that you in order to be able to build yourself, opportunities for volunteering is really the avenue for you to go. You can't expect to be paid, but the payout in terms of the development and the prospective opportunity far outweighs $100 that you might earn and spend in a day.
Definitely.
And so we really want to encourage that, and that's why we are dedicated to finding opportunities for young people to be able to come in and say, okay, well, this is a youth group you could probably tap into, maybe interested in doing this thing, so come to the youth department, see what we have to offer, see how we can channel you and direct you in whatever direction to see where the opportunities are, because they do come to us. But we just need the young people to be like, okay, yeah, take it.
And that $100 that you mentioned, it can't go on a resume.
It cannot. Exactly. Very good point.
I keep telling them.
It cannot.
Right. So as we mentioned, we're rolling over into November. We're almost at the end of October. And that is when, as the department, as we mentioned earlier, the department hosts Youth Month. Now, there are a number of activities that have been planned, and we certainly would like to hear a bit more about them, but we're going to take our final break. We'll be right back with more in Focus.
If you haven't done it as yet, please do it today. Subscribe to our YouTube page at SKNIS Media for regular updates, live coverage, and even more information on your government. While you're at it, like, share, and interact with our Facebook and Instagram pages at SKNIS Media and SKNIS Info.
Welcome back to In Focus. We continue our discussion with officials from the Ministry of Youth Empowerment in the persons of the Honorable Isalean Phillip, Minister, and Sahira Joseph, who is the Director of the Department of Youth Empowerment. Youth Month. Minister, you established the theme earlier. Ms. Joseph, remind us what the theme was and talk to us a bit about how the framing of that came about.
So this year we're doing youth work for environmental sustainability, but we actually can't take the credit. It was our good minister who proposed the theme, and we didn't oppose, especially because we were so heavy-handed in our initiatives like Project Green Thumb and our in-water seabed cleanups. Those are things that we do regularly, so it really wasn't a problem to have that be our theme this year, given where the direction we're heading as the department. Would you like to know some of the activities now?
Absolutely.
I'm so anxious to talk about these activities because, and the young people, they're excited too. Do you want can I run down the calendar? Do we have enough time?
Well, I'll tell you what, let's start, because there are certain initiatives, of course, that would be the regular ones. For instance, a church service, a church service. Perhaps you'd like to invite persons to the church service.
Oh, yes.
But there are some general ones that we are aware of. But I would want to focus a bit more on some of the newer initiatives, some of the more engaging ones that the public can really get involved with, whether it be to participate in or to sponsor or whatever. We just want to have a discussion a bit more about those.
Got you. So I'm just going to come right down. So one of the very first initiatives is our youth breakfast walk. We've never had that before, but we recognize that there are a lot of opportunities that we still want to do for young people, and the youth department can't fund everything, and we can't overextend the resources of our sponsors, because again, we have so many things lined up that we need their support for. So the youth breakfast walk is going to be on November the 4th. We're going to start at the Cable Building, go to the first roundabout over at Frigate Bay. It begins around 6 a.m. and it's just at a small fee of $20 for the breakfast. You can visit us on the 3rd floor of the Cable Building if you're interested in obtaining the tickets. Another new initiative
Before you continue, so the walk, why is it important to have a walk?
the walk, it's youth for environmental sustainability. So in that, we want our young people to, be fit, so that they can put on the whole host of these things that we are outside doing. We're doing some lifting, cleaning. So we said, you know what, we're gonna start off with some exercise, so that we can set our bodies right, so that we could proceed with the whole mandate that we have proposed again for Youth Month. So the next initiative that we have on the calendar is Youth Gives Back. We've never done that before either. On November the 6th, we want to visit those predominant sponsors for our summer camp. I know, of course, we can't pay them back for what they would have done for us. So we have asked them for an audience where we're coming and we do whatever they want us to do. So we're going to be working for them for that day. So if hotspots want us to do filing, shelving, whatever it is, we are there to support. Because they really, really showed up for us, especially for that How Do I Summit. It was absolutely wonderful. We didn't pay for any of the resources used. They just brought every single thing. We have to ensure that when people give to us, we don't ever forget to show appreciation in any way possible.
What was the How Do I Summit?
The How Do I Summit, we exposed our campus to the How Summit. The How Summit followed How Do I and How Can I. So we taught them things like, how do I fill out a resume? How do I get a social security card? How do I open an account? Do mobile banking, all of those things. And then the second one was, the second day, was more hands-on. We taught them, how do I change a flat tire? How do I fix a leaky faucet? How do I tie a tie? How do I cook rice? Basic things that you want a young person to be able to do. We taught that this summer during our summer camp, and from all accounts, those campers had an amazing time. So sponsors did that.
Mm-hmm. And before you continue with the calendar, Minister, I just wanted to jump in here about the importance of recognizing persons who support the work of the Department of Youth, who support the work of the government, because government cannot be expected to do all.
That's right. That's right. And so I'm always grateful when it comes to the sponsorship and support that we get from non-governmental agencies, from community-based groups and organizations, or even small businesses, because we do have some small business professionals who come out and say, well, I will deliver this service and facilitate this session at no cost to you. And we already know small businesses are already strapped for cash already. And so we're actually extremely appreciative in the department. So, that's why we have this initiative to say, well, as a youth department, youth officers, we want to show our appreciation. And that would be in addition to our usual annual appreciation awards that comes at the end of the month for all of our sponsors. We treat them to a nice dinner and give them some nice fancy awards. And so I want to express great thanks and gratitude. I'm a person, I personally believe that when it comes to youth work and youth development, everybody should have a vested interest in supporting young people. And so for those persons that step up to the plate to say yes, they're willing to sponsor, whether that's in cash or in kind, we're certainly most grateful, because the impact may not be able to be monetized, but we'll see it in just the development of our country and the development of our young people. And that How Do I Summit was actually also a new initiative. That was one of the new things that we brought on board at summer camp this year, and it really was a hit. I thought, when I heard about it, the concept, I was very supportive, because I think that's what we need for our young people. They don't necessarily get that within the education curriculum, because there's no space for it, or their homes. And so we do need to recognize, and that's kind of the gap that we're trying to fill in the youth department, and to have the support of other agencies and private sector. It really helps us in terms of making sure that we can sustain our nation, with making sure we build our young people to know how to do these basic things and survival, and to think more about financial management, and think more about how you manage yourself and the things that you need to survive in the world.
Something the government is also very keen on promoting, financial management and investment.
Absolutely.
Ms. Joseph, we go back to the calendar.
Okay, so following the calendar, another new initiative is going to be held on November the 9th. That is Club Day. We recognize that there are a lot of little groups going on, whether it's the anime group, the environmental club, the geography, it doesn't matter. We went around in the communities and we have asked them to let us know what community initiative you want to execute on that day, and we lend support. So whether it is supplying seedlings so that you can do that, supplying paint so you could paint, redo more murals in the schools or etc., we're there. We're lending our support anyway that we possibly can. So that is Club Day. Another thing that is new, we actually partnered over the summer with Brandy Williams Limited. We're having a youth essay competition this year too. I don't know if you would have seen the flyer, but I'll just explain that Brandy Williams Limited has been instrumental in moving us the mandate for us forward. This summer we held a youth entrepreneurial advancement scheme. We partnered with SBDC. We had a bunch of young people exposed to the basics of going from A to Z in starting a business, and then they were able to pitch for a $10,000 grant, and that whole experience was beautiful. So they're back again, and they are sponsoring our youth essay competition, and I can't wait to read the submission so that we can post the winning essay.
Is there a specific theme for that essay?
The theme?
Yes.
It's surrounding everything that you see. We spoke earlier about youth issues. It's all about youth issues and different issues.
So it's open. The young people can choose whatever they want to write about.
Yes, it is. Well, matter of fact, it goes from ages 12 to 19. So that's the margin that gets the opportunity. And
the flyer is available on the Facebook page.
Yes, it is. It's available on our Facebook page and online. Okay? So let me see. And another new initiative is Star Boy, Star Girl. You know those children in the school that is very helpful? Teacher, let me do this. Teacher, can I help? We just want to give them an opportunity to smile bright this year. We want to make them a big deal. We're gonna go to the schools, give them some little tokens of appreciation, and we've asked the schools to partner with us so that they can make them feel big for the day. So whether it is buying them lunch or giving them gift baskets, and the schools are so on board and ready for it. So we can't wait to see the Star Boy and Star Girls in all of the schools. So
as
we look forward to that.
Public and private?
I'm so sorry. It's government schools, so primary and secondary.
Right, and what date is that?
That is November the 20th. And then everything else is just what we generically do for Youth Month. So it's the high school cook-off, high school chef competition. The high school chef competition this year, we actually are going to be over at the Marriott Dome. I know it's never been outside of a school complex, so that is a change this year. The 25 Most Remarkable Teen Ceremony, of course, and we have the fun day with the youth with disabilities. That's always our joy every year, so we are looking forward to that. And another thing too, we have the family park back, so I know they're going to be very, very excited to be with us on that day. So
let me stop you there and just jump back a bit, because we want to talk a bit about the 25 Most Remarkable Teens, which has been one of the major initiatives that the department has had over I think it's 11 years now, 12 years. It's going to be 12 years, right? Talk to us a bit about some of the success stories. I know there are some names that persons would be familiar with, and I won't presume to call them because you're more associated, more familiar with them. And there's one off the top of my head, a sports athlete, a female. I could imagine everyone could imagine. But talk to us about...
And that is the thing, you know, so could you believe I got into the department 2016, I think from 2016 I would have been the officer in charge of them. That is 25 teens, sir, over a lot of years, and the names sometimes they slip me too, but whenever I see them out in public, my one thing is, hey, you behaving? And they'll be like, yes, I'm behaving. But rightfully so. We've had so many success stories. We have some blooming entrepreneurs, and we have some persons gone on to, like you would have mentioned, in the sports arena, just dominating. It's that girl for Shelley. I know exactly who you meant, but it's the name.
You can call her Desire Claxton.
Right,
Yes.
the name, right? And they are doing some amazing things. And based on the volunteer projects that would have been executed over the summer, I only anticipate them getting better and better and better. And I really hope people truly pay attention. We have a date. It's gonna be November the 28th, and I would encourage everybody to tune in as per norm and lend your encouragement, because out of this year we interviewed a large number again, so it just goes to show that our young people are out there doing some amazing things and they're being recognized. And if I could have given the 100 the award, I really would. They would tell you about me, but so we look forward to that.
Minister, the 25 most remarkable things it's done, of course, for those who would be familiar, during a parliament sitting, a special sitting of the parliament, important to get the MPs involved in that recognition, give the young people the national attention, so to speak.
Yes, and that's really the objective of it. So, there's a level of prestige that we like to tag to the 25 most remarkable teens, and that will be maintained. This year, we're seeing how we can, spruce it up a little bit to make it a bit more engaging. So look out for that, of course. But of course, the objective is to highlight and to recognize these young people that are doing great things where they're at in their lives right now in terms of their contributions to community and national development, and just excelling in whatever fields that they commit themselves to. And so we're looking forward to that, of course. One thing that Ms. Joseph didn't mention, but it's a mainstay, is of course our Ministers Youth Forum. And this year I can say that I've opted to do it a bit differently.
I actually wanted you to tackle, so I skipped over it because I wanted you to come in with it.
Yeah, so for Ministers Youth Forum, for me, I really wanted to be able to kind of capture a greater scope of young people to connect. I look forward to the forum because for me it is a time for me actually to get into the room with young people and actually talk and engage with them. And so this year I've decided to take myself on the street and go to the young people so I can kind of connect with more young people. So we've actually planned to have a ministerial youth caravan tour where I'll be moving from school to school and have a session with a group of young people from each school. We've really asked and requested for students from across all of the farms, from across all of the different the A1s to the A6s, all from top to bottom, so it's not the same students, because I really want to be able to engage with the young people. And the objective of that is really to kind of talk about the Sustainable Island State Agenda, what that means to our young people, how they think about sustainability, what are the things that are at the forefront for them when they think of government and governance. Because for me, this is how I am then able to go back to the cabinet and say, well, these are the things that are top of mind for the young people. And of course, it informs just engagements with the director and the youth officers to be able to say, well, our programming needs to shift and adjust in this way because this is what the young people are saying. So I'm looking forward to that personally. And so I want to hope that the young people are also looking forward, and I'm always open to hearing what they have to say. So hope that we can create that space.
What dates?
All the dates for the caravan.
Yes.
That we begin November the 14th.
Yes. November
14, 15, 16, based in the schools, and then we have the Ministers Forum.
Yes.
On the 17th.
So the 17th is where we're trying to get the persons who are not in school, the young people who are not in school, so young business professional, youth groups, and also our participants from NIVIS to come over on that day. So I'll be busy that week.
Right. And Ms. Joseph, I also want to touch on something that you mentioned in terms of funding for the differently abled. And of course, that is something that has been taking place over the years. But it is also something I would imagine that has added emphasis now that the Ministry of Youth Empowerment is also being paired with the Ministry of Disabilities, which is a new ministry that the government created last year.
So we didn't take, a matter of fact, every year we try to improve the funding for the disabled. This year we went all out, to be honest. So they're gonna have an amazing time. But I'm glad that you touched that we're now the Ministry of Youth Empowerment, Aging and Disabilities. So every single initiative that we propose, we try to ensure that we are aware. So even when it comes down to our venues for hosting things, we have to ensure that it's wheelchair accessible, and we take the time to go through the checks now, because if it's not something you have to think about, it comes as nothing to you, but it's part of my job now. So it's engraved inside me that, listen, this is what we have to do. This is what I need. Earlier this year, we actually tried to do a partnership with one of the local institutions who does the porta potties. So we're waiting for the schematics of how we can have the wheelchair accessible porta potties, so that when we are outside doing different activities, that we actually have those kind of amenities outside with us. So we are putting in the work. And it has been a pleasure, actually, working. I'm learning the terms. Yes, I am. So that was some homework right there. But the team is so refreshing. It is so humbling and so rewarding, to be honest. So.
And it is something, Minister, that we would have seen the government is very passionate about. I recall last evening during the lighting ceremony of government headquarters for UN Day, that there were 2 young men who were visually able. And actually, going back a bit further, when earlier one of the days of the show, we had Blindness Awareness Month, and the mother of those 2 young men were on.
Right.
And I know those young men also would have participated in youth camp the first time, the summer camp this year. And so the government is really embracing persons with differently able and ensuring that they have the opportunity.
Actually,
I was going to say, yes, so Keon, so the Roaches, so Keon and Keandre Roach, well known, they are 2 young fellas who are blind, very supportive parents, and so they did participate in youth camp. We did make sure we accommodated them, and it was actually really nice to see, just in terms of the young people supporting Keon and Keandre. Keon was actually the Calypso kid.
Yes,
he was and he really did excellent job.
We didn't cheat, you know.
We did not.
We did not.
He really was the best in terms of his performance his production. And so we have King Keon. And I think it's a good, for us at the Youth Department, as you can hear, Ms. Joseph said, we're committed to making sure that we're inclusive in our programming. And it does require extra work, but that just is what has to happen. We need to make sure that, they're safe and they can be, that our spaces are accessible. And we were able to have our youth camp. They stayed on camp for the full 2 weeks. And they had a blast. They had a really good time. And that's the culture that we're really trying to create with the Ministry of Youth, Aging and Disability. So in our programming, you'll see our youth officers supporting our aging unit. You'll see our youth officers supporting our disability unit in terms of the events and activities that we do, because we're also trying to build intergenerational type of bonds and, co-responsibility and just kind of that kind of relationship. So that's the work. That's just part of the work. We're kind of trying to build that culture. And so I'm very pleased with how the Department of Youth is taking the lead to make sure that young people with disabilities are also included and have opportunities for engagement as well.
Ms. Joseph, the Minister mentioned the youth service reception. Just go back to the calendar and signal to us some of the other dates and the times for some of these activities as well.
For the youth service reception this year, it's gonna that's normally our last event. We want to ensure that everybody who would have been with us throughout the year is recognized, and that is our one opportunity where we are able to do so. So it's a delight. This year we are hoping to have it at Royal St. Kitts on November the 30th. So that again is something that we are definitely looking to saying thank you at. So
the full calendar of activities, how can persons find
the
that?
full calendar of activities can be found on our Facebook page, Department of Youth Empowerment St. Kitts, and I imagine SKNIS too would lend some support in housing our Youth Month calendar.
And you can always call the department or the ministry
Yes.
if you want information about what's happening.
Definitely.
With the youth department, we love visitors. We're really trying to make sure our offices are very youth friendly and
Yes.
focused. So, please stop by, come visit our youth offices. They're actually a joy. Third floor of the cable building is where you will find the youth department as well as the ministry secretariat for youth, aging and disabilities. That's where my office is also located with the PS of the ministry.
Minister, it's a bit unfair, but I'm going to give you the last word. Unfair in the sense that we're almost out of time.
Yes.
However, I would just like very briefly for you to talk to the young people and tell them how, for those who desire to make an impact, what's your advice for them?
My advice would be to really always try to encourage young people to kind of lead from where you're at. You can be a leader in your small spaces. You can just decide that you want to take an opportunity to do something good. So if you see something that, it could be tackled, for example, you're in your school and there could be a little bit of cleanup here, there's nothing wrong with you saying, okay, I'm going to take the opportunity to do that. I think young people have a lot of ideas, always want to encourage persons. And, it's only an idea until you decide to have a conversation about it with somebody, and then you can create it. It can become a goal. So I really want to encourage young people to kind of be confident in who they are and take the opportunities where they are to really take the opportunity to engage, to take the opportunity to do something. There's nothing wrong with showing a bit of kindness. It takes nothing away from you to show a bit of kindness or to do something good, to be able to have some kind of impact. Any small thing, I think small contributions lead to the contribution to the big picture. So never ever feel that because you're a young person that you don't have something valuable to contribute, because that is not the case at all. And we are here to be able to enable that contribution and to support that, because that's what we're really trying to accomplish as we work towards a sustainable island state agenda.
Minister responsible for Youth Empowerment, the Honorable Isalean Phillip. Sahira Joseph, Director of the Department of Youth Empowerment. Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of InFocus.
Thank you.
And we'd also like to thank you, viewers and listeners, for being with us this week. Be sure to join us next week at the same place, at the same time, for another edition of InFocus. I'm Ian Richards.
Join us every Wednesday for InFocus, a weekly talk show produced by the SKNIS Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. InFocus, your government, your business.